I'm here with Dennis Pyle, who's running in the Republican primary for the 2nd District Congressional seat. Dennis, thanks for visiting us here, and let's get right to it. You ran for this seat in 2010 in the primary, got 43% of the vote, actually. So do you think that Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins did a good job because you ran against her, and is there something you wanted to improve when you ran then?
Well, if you recollect, Bob, I ran in 2010 based on the fact that we had a congressperson representing our district that was a little bit voting in a different way than what the people of this district follow. She wasn't voting on life issues correctly. She had a record of being wrong on Second Amendment issues, and we ran hard on those issues and pounded those issues, and for 8 years following that, she voted correctly. And we believe that holding people that are elected accountable is something that needs to happen. It took a lot of work and a lot of time and effort for us to do that, but we made connections with the 2nd District that are relevant to this race, and today all of that leather that was laid down in 2010 is paying off, and we think that that puts us in a great position in this election for where we're at.
Yeah, there's a video on your YouTube site, and I'll quote you. You said, "When you get elected as a conservative, the establishment immediately tries to get you to compromise your principles," unquote. Now, from basically 2010 to 2016, one could argue that, or maybe you disagree, that Kansas state government was conservative across the board, but you're saying it maybe was not as conservative as people say it was?
Well, if you look at the growth of government, even at the state level, I don't consider it conservative growth by any means. I mean, Kansas has raised taxes in 2013, 2015, and 2017 respectively. I've opposed all of those tax increases, which are due to the fact that there's no control over spending. People want to grow government that are in the legislature, and they tend to have a bad habit of spending. And I'd like to see some restrictions put on to where we tie it to something that says that our state government's limited in how much it can grow. We haven't seen that happen, and this last year, for instance, if I can go to state government, as an example, the biannual budget went from $6.1 to $7.2 billion, which I don't know a business in Kansas that can grow at that rate, or any individual or family that can grow at that rate. And I think it's out of place when government grows faster than those entities can. So.
Now, when we look at the federal budget, as you well know, we're talking some big money here in terms of the debt. And again, on your web videos, you talk about that. And so the first question I have is, given that the debt just keeps rising and rising, I think it's $21 trillion now, does the debt even matter? And second, given the record of Democrat and Republican congresspeople over the last number of years in the 2nd District, can voters trust any candidate that they'd be able to do something about the debt if they got elected?
I think, yes, the debt does matter, and I do think that they can trust Dennis Pyle. If you look at my record over the time that I've been in the legislature, my rhetoric matches my record. I ran, when I first ran, telling people that I would be a fiscal conservative. I'm the only candidate in this race that has opposed and fought every tax increase. And I can say that honestly and openly, and anyone can check my record. I also ran as a social conservative, and I have a 100% voting record with Kansas for Life. And I also said I would be a strong advocate for Second Amendment rights, and I have an A rating after 16 years in the legislature on that. So I think that when it comes to the fact, does your rhetoric line up with what you campaigned on, my record does match my rhetoric, and we've been speaking to that effect to people in the district. And we like to point out too that, you know, I don't work for leadership in the state government, and I'm not intending to work for leadership when I go to Washington. I will work with them, and there's a difference between working with them and working for them, and I think I exemplify that difference in the fact that I stick to what I have told the people in the constituency in my district, and I will do the same in Washington.
So you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that you're willing to defy party leadership if you have to?
Absolutely, yes. I will not. I will stand on principle, And the things that I've told the voters in this election that I will do are the things that I will do and stand for.
Now, the federal budget discretionary spending is only 34%. There's a lot of entitlements in there. And of that, defense is 55% of the 34%. Are there some areas in the federal budget of that relatively smaller piece of the pie that you could see that could be cut? You talk about cutting the government.
Yeah. And a lot of times, let's talk about definition of terms a little bit, because people use the word cutting when technically they're really saying, let's just reduce the growth. I think there is room to make real cuts. We have programs, entitlements that need to be addressed, and I think some of the things that they're looking at for work reform and work requirements for some of those programs are good things that need to be addressed. And those work requirements could fall in the realm of community benefit, to where they're doing community service and helping out. There's a lot of things that can be looked at to reform and to make it better. But I do think there are places where government can get leaner and become a lot more efficient. Is it reality to say we can cut government? It's going to take more people like Dennis Pyle getting elected to Washington to make that happen, because I've seen that at the state level too. Like I said earlier, the spending habits are real. There are those that just simply cannot say no, and we have to be able to say no. We have a limited budget, we have a limited amount of revenue, we have families out here that are working and businesses working to provide government the revenue that we have, and we should always look at it and say, you know, are we living within our means? The last thing we should do is be going to raise taxes. And the federal government, you know, not only can raise taxes, but they can print money. And so we have a real problem in Washington with spending, and I do think we can address that. And I think that wasteful spending and efficiency are things that we should absolutely look at to reform the federal government.
Second District has quite a few farmers, a lot of soybean farmers. Some of them are a little worried that a trade or tariff war that even could benefit the entire country, though, could hurt the Second District. What do you tell those farmers if they express that apprehension?
Well, you know, I am a farmer. I do have soybeans and I have corn and we have some cattle. I look at the tariffs kind of in the sense that the president is really concerned about our trade deficit, and I think he's trying to do what is necessary to bring back some of the balance in trade. And as a farmer, and as I talk to other farmers, most farmers are like, you know, let's see where we're going with this. I'm willing to do my part. Let's make sure everybody's doing their part. And I think they tell me they want to see the end game a little more. But this president's a deal maker, and so let's see what he does. Let's give him a shot. And I'm willing. I've watched beans come down and tumble $2 in the last 30 days or so, and that's difficult because it's your bread and butter, it's your livelihood. But I think we're all in this together as Americans, and I think that if we want to make our country great again, then we have to deal with the trade deficit, we have to deal with the deficit spending in the budget, and we have to get the debt under control. Because I have 5 grandchildren, Bob. And when I first ran, it was my daughters I was concerned about. We have 6 daughters. And today, I saw one of my granddaughters right before I came to the station. And I want her to have the same freedoms and liberties I do. And I think that it's time that we start dealing with this especially the foreign policy and the trade deficit. We've got to deal with it. I'm glad to see, and I think most farmers in this district are, glad to see a president who's willing to step up and for a change take some actions to deal with these issues.
We have time for one more question. I think this is an interesting one. The Second District, I think, is fascinating. Donald Trump won the Second District very easily, but then Paul Davis, a Democrat, won by 6 points over Sam Brownback, a Republican. So what's your take on the Second District, and how do you fit in as a candidate arguing that you are the candidate for this district?
How do I fit into the Second District?
Given this, that the district voted for Paul Davis, a Democrat, but also voted for Donald Trump, a Republican, in 2 separate elections.
And just to kind of just look at the race for a second, if we back up, yes, Davis won by 6 points, but 3 points went to a third-party candidate named anyway, the candidate in that race. And I believe that candidate was fairly conservative. And so if you throw that 3 points in between Brownback and Davis, Davis marginally won by 3%. That was more a referendum on the governor, I think. I do think this district's more conservative than what that election shows. And I think I fit in well. I represent 7 counties in northeast Kansas. We have an urban-rural mix, and I think it's very similar to what the 2nd district is with its urban-rural mix. You listen to everyone. Again, you campaign stating your principles and your ideologies, and then you stick with that. And that's what I plan on doing. I'm going to make sure my record will match my rhetoric. And sometimes it's interesting when I look at the district as to how much rural area there really is. It's from the Oklahoma border to the Nebraska border, as you know, and I've traveled it a lot, and I think it's reflective of my values. I think that we will do a good job representing the 2nd district.
All right. Well, reminder that the primary is August 7th, and thank you so much for visiting with us.
Thank you for having me, Bob.